I don't think I've had a particularly successful corporate career. I don't think so. And there was a stage when I actually wanted to give up.
Mr. Rajeev Dubey
Chairman of Mahindra Insurance Brokers Limited,
served the corporate for 5 decades.
past president of National HRD Network and the Employers Federation of India.
I have tried to uphold this principle of standing up for justice, a dedication to Satya, Prem and Seva in the context of a purpose. I had signed up with the Tatas to be there for life.
So after 29 years,
The biggest punch was when I had to resign as the managing director of a company called Rallies India. It's a Tata company. It was not something that I chose to do on my own. I was just pushed into a circumstance where I had to do it. It was the lowest point in my life and yet the beginning of the highest point in my life. It gave me a boss who's a dream, a gentleman called Anand Mahindra. A very rare combination of head, heart and soul. For me, was the first person I met in corporate India where the heart and the soul were actively used to contribute to the operating rhythms of corporate life. If Anand Mahindra says something, you can rest assured that that's what he thinks and that's what he will do, which is my definition of authenticity, which creates trust. So I have to be truthful. One thing I wish I did not have was a feeling that I'm inadequate. While intellectual knowledge is perhaps a good thing and ceteris paribus, as they say in economics, everything else being the same, it's good up to a point. I'm able to accept myself and others much more than I could earlier. So that's a change. And after retirement, it's like a surrender.
Welcome to the podcast, the XMonks Drive. This is your host, Gaurav Arora. And today we have a very special guest, a TOS Administrative Service Officer, served Tatas for over 29 years, followed by his tenure with Mahindras for almost like 2 decades. He has the great fortune of working with great leaders like Anand Mahindra. Let's take a dive and listen to Mr. Rajeev Dubey and try and understand what it means to work with leaders like him, what makes him human, and what are the challenges that he has to go through that made him who he is. Rajeev sir, thank you so much. Such a pleasure having you here on the podcast, the XMonks Drive. Such an honor. Thank you.
It's equally my honor, privilege and joy to be here. Thank you.
Shukran. And it took us some time to have you on the show. You have been traveling. Once you left Mahindra's, you would have comparatively more time.
Yeah, well, actually, I haven't fully left Mahindra. As you know, I'm still the chairman of 3 of their companies. But yes, God has been very kind that after I retired, my days are full. I've never really had to wonder, अब मैं क्या करूं? So this is God's gift and I think my late wife's blessings. So.
Rajesh sir, I've always found you extremely kind, sincere, polite, humble. These are the words that come to me when I think about you. Just curious, if I may request you to go back to your life journey.
Yeah.
Right? Probably when you would have graduated from St. Stephen's or Delhi School of Economics for that matter. Mm-hmm. How did you foresee your career? How did you foresee your life? And is it in alignment to where you are?
Frankly, answer is no. Mm-hmm. As a young person in school and even in St. Stephen's College, till some events overtook me and got the better of my dream. My dream was actually to be an academic. Mm-hmm. That was my conscious dream. When I was really very young, and you'll laugh at this, maybe at the age of 6 or 7, my dream was to be the Prime Minister of India. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but my sort of very strong desire was to be an academic. Mm. And then, events happened largely to do with headaches, unexplained headaches, and burning in the eyes when I was in college, and I couldn't read. And there was a stage when I actually wanted to give up. I remember I went to my mother. This was in my third year in St. Stephen's College, and I said, I'm going to give up because I just can't carry on these headaches, and I can't really read much. And how will I give my exams? And my mother told me, Beta, I mean, you've worked for 3 years. It's important in life to have a degree. Exam लिख दो, even if you get a third division भी मिल जाए तो कोई बात नहीं.
And you were with St. Stephen's.
At that time, I realized, I mean, it was not this particular event, but these headaches, etc. I said, I can never be an academic. And I'm saying that it was so bad that I was even going to give up,
your own
give up on college.
Yeah.
So I took the exam, and by an irony of fate, I came first in the university. I was fourth before I took the exam, and I came first. But it was clear to me that I couldn't be an academic. So then I started looking around. My next choice was, joining the civil service. But that also required you to study and take an exam, and I couldn't. So the truth is that the Tata Administrative Service, the TAS, which I eventually joined, and which was a great thing.
Did you give civil services or did you directly go for TAS?
No. I only appeared for the TAS selection thing. There was no exam there. They were not interested in testing your knowledge. They were interested in understanding who you were and what drove you, what your value system was, what your aspiration was, what your purpose was. They were more interested in those things.
Yeah. And I understand at that point in time, they used to take only 10 people.
That's what we heard. In my batch, it was by their standards, a large batch. 9 people were selected. 9. Of which we had the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rank-wise of IIM Ahmedabad. There were 2 of us from the Delhi School of Economics. One was from Cornell. One was from McMaster University. And I forget where the other guy was from.
What inspired you to join
That
Tata Administrative Services?
Yeah. Okay, so now you'll have to believe that I'm speaking the truth.
Truth, but only the truth.
Only the truth, which may sometimes, be an anticlimax.
Looking forward to that.
So you see, when I couldn't get into academics, I still had this other dream, to make a difference to my country, to do something to help cut down the poverty and the suffering of millions of people in my country. So I was looking for some place where there was going to be a creation of income and wealth for a large number of people. So by that criteria, the Tatas were very good. In my frame of things, if I could have got into the government, I could have impacted on a larger scale, or so I thought, perhaps naively. But since I was not in a position to study and take exams, Tatas were a very good bet.
Yeah.
So from the point of view of my sort of purpose in life, from the point of view of my value systems, the Tatas were known for their integrity, for their governance, for their spirit of serving society, for being, a part of the mainstream, and of course creating income and wealth. So it was a good fit, and I was very lucky. And when I now look back, frankly, and I know this is reverse engineering, I think perhaps those headaches, etc., was the universe's way of pushing me into a life that I had never thought of. I mean, I grew up, my family background was I had not heard the name of a company called Hindustan Lever, for example. I had heard of Lux and Surf. I didn't know the name of the company that made it. And I grew up in Delhi. My father was, a bureaucrat. Before that, he was a freedom fighter. My whole family was sort of, freedom fighter kind of people.
So did that influence?
Of course.
That desire to make a difference, to support people who are suffering and eradicate poverty?
I'm sure it must have. I mean, without any doubt. You see, because one, of course, there was something called genes, or there's a word in the Hindu spiritual scheme of things called prarabdha.
Prarabdha karma.
Okay, so now, but I don't know about the prarabdha, but definitely I know that consciously, the kind of family that I grew up in, the kind of conversations that were held, the kind of stories that we held, the kind of behavior that we saw, my father, my mother, relations, the kind of people they interacted with, all of those certainly had a huge influence on me. And this desire to do seva, to stand up for the truth, to fight against oppression, to stand up for those who are less fortunate than I am. These were things that meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
Now, did I really do a lot about all these things? It depends on, what I compare myself with. I mean, if I compare myself with Mother Teresa, obviously I didn't do anything directly. Or if I compare myself with the Prime Minister of a country, they were doing much more, could do much more. But in my own little way, wherever I have been, I have tried to uphold this principle of standing up for justice,
Yeah.
a dedication to Satya, Prem and Seva.
Yeah.
In the context of a purpose, which for me was the creation of income and wealth for the community at large.
This Satya, Prem, Seva, this is one subject that I would like to dedicate in this episode for sure. And I'll come to that. You know what? When I started telling my friends that I'm going to interview Mr. Rajeev Dubey, they were so excited and I could resonate with that. And I said, given a choice to you, what would you like to ask from Mr. Dubey?
Yeah.
And people say, hey, how come he's so perfect?
Oh my
How come
God.
he's so, how come
Anything
he's
but
so
perfect.
kind? How come he's so humble? I'm sure there are many people who look at you as mentor.
I'm grateful to anyone who has said these nice words.
In this conversation, I would like to only look at two elements. One is, are there any rough edges that Mr. Rajeev Dubey, does he have any kind of rough edges in his
Oh
life,
yes, of
right?
course, plenty. Yeah.
Are there any unspoken stories around him?
I'm sure there must be. I would be a really boring guy if I didn't have unspoken stories. I have plenty.
The second one is, who are those people that you look up to as your mentor? So these are the two areas that we are going to dwell into.
Sure.
Where should we begin?
Where should you begin? Your choice.
Okay, so I will take the unspoken stories.
Okay.
What is this giggle about?
There are some unspoken stories that I promise you I will not speak about. That's why I'm giggling.
Okay, so let's start from that. We all have certain assumptions that we live our life from. And somehow they are so much stuck with us, or we are so much stuck with them, that it becomes very difficult to let go of them as well. Yeah. Do you have any kind of beliefs that you have been holding on to, which you know are not serving you, and yet holding you back?
Yeah. So I have to be truthful. One thing I wish I did not have was a feeling that I'm inadequate in almost every situation that I was in. It's only very recently, I would say, in the last maybe 10, 15 years, and especially after I got married to Padma, that I was able to slowly overcome this huge feeling of inadequacy. It's been there. It's sort of taken acute forms. People who know me would never think that I have huge feelings of inadequacy, or that I'm very unsure of myself, or I always, in a sense, seek approval of others. I wish I didn't have these traits, but I have them. And it's only, as I said, after 50, 55, 60, even now I have it. But now I can look at it and laugh. And
Can you share a couple of examples from your life?
Okay, let me put it this way, that I never felt helpless. This feeling that I am inadequate did not make me helpless. Or get into a mode of inaction. On the other hand, it always spurred me to try harder, to try more. You see? So then later on I said, let me make friends with it, why make it a foe? Let me make a friend with this feeling of inadequacy.
So from
each time it comes up, let me say, hello, friend.
So rather than being a victim, let me be friends with them.
Yeah, and let me not be a victim.
Yeah.
Let me be the creator of my life. Let me just accept the fact.
Any example where life punched you in your face?
Oh, yes, of course. One, clearly, it was, there are many punches, but the biggest punch was when I had to resign as the managing director of a company called Rallies India. It's a Tata company of which I was the managing director for a 3-year period, under which I put in my papers. And more than anything else, what I went through, it was a catharsis. It was the lowest point in my life and yet the beginning of the highest point in my life.
The new era.
So it was an amazing experience where I plumbed the depths of my soul, and yet in that process connected with my own strengths. And it opened, actually, if one door got closed, because I had signed up with the Tatas to be there for life. And therefore, it was sort of very traumatic for me that,
After 27 years,
29 years.
29 years.
Yeah. But the amazing thing is that it opened up for me perhaps what was the most productive and the most wonderful part of my life.
So after 29 years, you had to leave or you chose to leave?
It's a mix of both. See, the fact that I was pushed into a corner where I had to resign as the managing director of Rallies India. Okay, so I have to be truthful that it was not something that, I chose to do on my own. I was just pushed into a circumstance where I had to do it. Would the Tatas have given me another assignment? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe not. They did give me something, but my heart was no longer there. I cannot, work with anyone or any organization.
What got questioned?
Pardon?
What got questioned there for you?
Maybe we should not go into that. So let's see. It's a it's a part of my life that can have many answers. But I can only tell you that I was feeling a victim. I was feeling really wronged. I was feeling very angry with one person in particular. Thank God it was just one person and not 2 persons or 5 persons. And feeling very sorry for myself. It was a stage where I said, how can I show my face? But then, I discovered first the amount of support I was getting from all kinds of people. One biggest support came from my family, from my wife and my children. It was amazing. And then my parents and, my father-in-law, everybody. And then even friends, even corporate colleagues. And so, as I said, it was, in a sense, the worst of times. And in another sense, it was the best of times.
This is like what, 10, 15 years back?
This was in 2003.
It's almost like 21 years
and
back.
Everything was going fine. And then suddenly in the space of 2-3 months, all hell broke loose. 2003.
Yeah. So 21 years, 2 decades back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This happened May, June, July.
Yeah.
These were the 3 months.
And you were saying, let's not still talk about that.
Yeah, because...
what is it bringing out today as well? What are those ashes that you're still holding on to?
The ashes that I'm holding on to is actually my inability to rise above the anger. I have to be truthful that I still haven't got over my sense of anger, or it could be inadequacy, or the fact that I've been wronged. I have actually not been able to, and it demeans me.
Every time when you think about that.
It demeans me. It just shows me that I'm, what kind of a person am I that I'm not able to get over something, despite the fact that that event opened up for me a wonderful, amazing 20 years of my life at both personal and as well as professional level. It gave me a boss who's a dream. I could never have dreamt of getting a better boss than the one that I got. Gentleman called Anand Mahindra. So it was a great blessing from God. And guess what? The one person who told me this, and at the time that he told me this, I didn't know what to think, was my father. And he said that, look, you have to look upon what is happening as a message from God. He used the word God, from the Almighty, that there is something else for you in this life.
Yeah.
So don't look upon it as a calamity. Look upon it as the opening up of a new life. And I didn't understand it. And he said, you must thank the person who you're angry with. And actually, the fact is that when I met that gentleman, I embraced him and I said, thank you so much. You're like God to me. And of course, he didn't understand it. He thought I was trying to be sarcastic and so on and so forth, because there was a lot of disagreement between them. We were chalk and cheese as characters. But, I actually said it because that's what my father had told me to do.
And
that's what it turned out to be, actually.
Rajeev sir, you know this, I look up to you. Every time when I go through some really dilemmas in my life, like dilemmas, I'm not talking about the work is not happening or the business is not going. No, that's not the kind of challenges I discuss with you, right? I discuss with you something which is extremely important to me, right? It's like something that I'm dealing with my family at the family level. I come to you. We understand things at the head level. We are able to process what people are talking about and the right things written in the books. And yet, when it comes to being one with one of those experiences, as individual, I feel my body does not understand what is it that we are missing as human beings here.
It's a very difficult question you've asked, Gaurav. And I don't know whether, as what are we missing. The answer that comes to me is that it's not only the intellect, but it is the being which finally matters. So ultimately, it's what we experience, right? Intellect may say anything, but the feelings that we have, they, in a sense, they don't neglect intellectual input. Of course, they process it. But there is something else that is going on there, And so, while intellectual knowledge is perhaps a good thing, and, ceteris paribus, as they say in economics, everything else being the same, it's good up to a point. Beyond a point, it can have, what is known as diminishing marginal utility, and after some time, it could even be a negative marginal utility. So I would say that we should not pray only at the altar of the intellect. That we should know that in any situation, and especially in life, we need to be using what one could call, and not very accurately, the whole mind or the whole brain.
The whole brain.
Yeah, where
Daniel Pink has written a book on this.
Where you need to combine logic, intellect, rationality, programming with empathy, intuition, imagination.
Yeah.
In a sense, we have to move from the tyranny of either or to the power of and. Now, that is not saying very much. Because then your question would be, and can mean many things. It's a spectrum. Where in that spectrum between either and or do I
find
the and? Okay, and the answer, of course, to that, there is no cookie cutter answer. Each person will have a different answer to the point in the spectrum where he finds the and that and may be at different points in the spectrum at different points in time. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think just the awareness that it is not only the intellect, or it is not only my emotions and my feelings, but both of them that really define life.
They say that life continues to offer us experiences until we learn those lessons. And we continue to attract those situations in our life which are very important for our soul journey.
Yes, I have heard that and I have read about that. And it's a nice, I think I would like to believe that also. I'm 70 and it's a nice time in my life. I am able to be much more in the here and now, which was a big challenge for me. I am able to be in the flow of things because I can be in the here and now. And I have a lot of gratitude for all the things that have been bestowed upon me. And that helps me to deal with problems. I mean, obviously there are problems and there will be problems. But I am at a stage where I'm very happy to accept something like belief. Now, one can intellectually question it, but it's a debate that I don't even feel like getting into now. What's the point of winning an argument? One has to think about life. We're talking about life, we're talking about how we feel and experience, because there is nothing out there, right?
It's only here.
Really. That is
Here and
true.
now, as you said.
Yeah. So you can call it this, you can call it that, you can call it soul. I don't know.
Yeah.
But definitely there is nothing out there in the sense that events that happen come without any emotions. We put in the emotions. And the emotions is what we are feeling and what we are calling experience. I'm not getting intellectual, please. I'm not a philosopher at all.
Rajeev sir, we have situations in our life where we know we are doing transaction. Today, if you look back at your life, when you were at the prime of your youth, let's say between the age of 25 to 35, metaphorically speaking, is there anything that you are not been able to recognize in you then, that if somebody tells you that Rajeev was like that, you'll not be able to identify yourself with him?
See, so first of all, I don't know how I was perceived, nor do I have much of an idea of how I am perceived, right? I don't know. Has anything changed in me? Has something changed fundamentally, in terms of
that you're not
the
been able
choices?
To identify or relate to that younger Rajeev?
No, I don't think so. But the change that has taken place is that I'm able to accept myself and others much more than I could earlier. So that's a change. As I said, I'm able to be much more in the here and now and in the flow. And the feeling of gratitude is much more. And after retirement, it's like a surrender, behti vi Ganga mein chale ja rahe. Get up and you have time. I have time now. So I'm not stressed all the time, not looking at my watch. Am I missing a meeting? Are there emails that are lying unanswered and will it create a problem for me? So that kind of thing is not there. So I can only say that there is a great life after retirement. But it's not that there isn't a life. It's a wonderful life. It's a different life.
You said that you worked with Tata's for 29 years.
Yes.
What an institution Tata's is.
Yes.
I tell people in all my conversations, if not for Tata's, India would not have been where India is. I got my first coaching key assignment from Titan. And if not for Titan, I would not have gotten the first credentials that I often flaunt.
I see. Yeah.
Now, who are those people that if you were to recognize two people, that these are the two people who
in
have...
Tata's?
In Tata's, who have sculpted your life and your career. Not only just career.
Well, definitely it would be Rusi Modi, one. The second person, if I had to choose one, would be Jamshed Irani. It was a very different kind of a thing. And these were two people I had the privilege and honor of working. So in the Tatas, it would be these two.
Any conversation that you can recall with these people?
So many. I mean, a conversation of this kind. Maybe I should just not refer to any. But
Okay.
they had huge impact. I was with Rusi Modi, my first job. I was 21 years old. Didn't have an MBA degree. Came from the Delhi School of Economics and St. Stephen's College. And he was my boss, and he was larger than life. He was a legendary character. Everything about him was fascinating. I mean, it was an absolutely new world. I mean, almost like in a wonderland. I was in awe of him. I used to sometimes think, how will I live if once I leave his office? I actually used to think that. It had that much of an
I've heard
influence.
so many stories, the kind of class that he has, the kind of cutlery that he would have in his office, the way he would give instructions to his team members, the way he would ask people to type.
Also see, one was him. Equally, it was me. I was 21 years old. I had come into the corporate world for the first time. I was wet behind my ears. I don't know now at the age of 70 if I was to go and work what I would feel. I'm only telling you what I felt. And definitely a large part had to do with him, but equally it had to do with me, what stage in my life I was in.
So it's not only about how giving your mentor is, the question is, are you ready to even receive?
Of course.
And embrace and accept?
But Gaurav, that is true of any relationship. It's true. It's it's right equal. So it has to be from both sides. How can any relationship be only from one side? Then it's not a relationship, no? Or it is a particular kind of relationship. But when you're talking about mentoring, if somebody is giving you something, you have to be able to accept it also. No?
And any particular edge that they helped you to round off?
Different edges at different points in time, I would say. But mostly about connecting with my own self. But I mean, how do you frame a problem with a Rusi Modi as with Anand Mahindra? Rusi Modi always thought big and thought very differently. And he was highly innovative. And he liked, drama.
The bigger than life kind of a thing.
Yeah. Jamshed Irani, on the other hand, was, much more process-driven, much more sort of driven by evidence, facts, and yet had a lot of compassion, which many people couldn't see. Beneath his gruff exterior, he had a heart of gold.
Yeah.
And he meant and he did so much for me in my difficult times. You see, you recognize the value of a mentor more when the chips are down.
So when you left Tata's, were you in touch with them?
Of course. No, not with Rusi Modi. I think Rusi Modi maybe he had even died, I can't remember. But Jamshed Irani, certainly. Yeah, of course. I've been in touch with Jamshed Irani till he died.
Okay, so let's look at the next chapter of your life, which is, of course, our audience would love to know more about. You have worked very closely with Mr. Anand Mahindra.
Oh, yes.
So tell us who he is, how he is, the lessons that you have learned, any time when you got into disagreement with him. How did you manage that?
Yeah. Okay, so let me say that Anand Mahindra is a very rare combination of head, heart, and soul.
Okay.
And he, for me, was the first person I met in corporate India where the heart and the soul were actively used to contribute to the operating rhythms of corporate life. And it was something that really appealed to me because all my life
you've been searching for that kind of combination.
Because I could see no difference between my, if you like, spiritual and mystical
aspect
life and the decisions that I was taking in corporate life or the way I was behaving. I was one person corporate life just happened to be a context and a certain manifestation, but the energy, the soul, the inner space, if you like, from which all decisions come, that was the same. I don't want to even say support, because Anand himself was the originator of a lot of things, and many of them got manifested in what we call Mahindra Rise. But with him, I found a person of huge authenticity. So he was authentic, and he's humble and empowering to a degree which is almost unbelievable and which can even be frightening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example where you were expecting him to take a call based on the business profitability, and yet he proved you wrong?
As I said, Anand always combined the two, right?
Head, heart, and soul.
Yeah, so he was a hard-headed, hard-nosed businessman, but he always tempered it with purpose, with the longer term. And for example, the way he supported the business that I had the privilege of growing, which is the aftermarket sector, very few corporates would have accepted lack of profitability for so long. And yet he always supported, because he believed in that business. And he understood the difficulties of creating a business model that would give sustained profitability and growth very quickly. So this clearly was one example. There were several other examples. I remember there was one case, and I don't want to mention the name. Mahindra's had a business dealing with another large corporate, and there was some commitment that had been made to them of a certain amount of money that would accrue to them if certain events happened. And at the time that the transfer of money was to take place, the Mahindras could have argued to give less. But what my memory is, this is my memory, Anand took a stand, no, I have made a promise and I want to fulfill that promise. I want to keep my word, even though there is a case that I could save some money. But I don't want to do that. For me, my word is more important than a couple of crores of rupees. So I've seen that happening. Okay. And the support and the empowerment that he gave, as I said, was really phenomenal. It was not only to me, I was blessed, but I saw it with so many other people. I have never seen Anand Mahindra being rude or nasty. I have not seen.
Wow.
If I went in for a performance review with Anand and he had to tell me that there were areas in which I hadn't done what I could have done, the way he said it, far from making me feel small and demotivated, would actually make me feel uplifted. And I would say, my God, what an amazing person he is. And it would actually make me want to deliver more. Because how can I let down somebody who is placing his trust in me, who is not belittling me, wants to support me, and yet he has to tell me the truth, that something is not as good as it should be. So that is a rare quality, very rare quality. And he's authentic, totally authentic. If Anand Mahindra says something, you can rest assured that that's what he thinks and that's what he will do. Which is my definition of authenticity, which creates trust.
Rajeev sir, have you ever gotten into a disagreement with him? How was it for you? And how did he respond or he react?
There must have been. I hope
I'm
there
sure.
was. But I can't remember any specific. I cannot. But them 100% there would have been, because he would have overruled me and plenty of times. both in the sort of business part of my responsibility as well as my HR and communications and government relations, all of which were part of my portfolio.
Yeah.
So without any doubt, there must have been disagreement.
Yeah.
Now, can I remember anything? It's a very small example. I mean, not a good example at all, but I disagreed with him on the estimate of how many seats the BJP would get in the 2019 elections. And I have to tell you that I had a figure in mind, but hearing what Anand was saying, I changed that figure. So that was my short.
So it doesn't really matter where you are in your career, in your profession. Politics and sports and Bollywood will continue to remain one of the subjects that we can discuss.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope so. I do want, maybe you're coming to it yourself, but you asked me about mentors who made a difference to me in my corporate life. I would like to acknowledge mentors who were not really part of my corporate life, but who obviously made a huge difference to me.
In fact, that's what my next question is.
Okay.
You use the word being 3 times.
Yeah.
You said there was something in his being.
Yeah.
You said authenticity
Yeah.
and trust.
Yeah.
There's something that you said, there was a combination of head, heart, and soul. And again, you re-emphasize on this word being. And I personally believe that once being, there's a shift at the being level, it starts to show up, it starts to manifest in our personal lives as well.
Yeah. Yes. Of
2
course.
questions.
Yeah.
1, whatever you have learned from these mentors, how has that learning manifested in your personal life? And who are those people in your personal front helped you become who you are?
Okay. So let me answer the second question first, and then I'll move into this first part. So clearly my father, my mother, my 2 brothers, my wife, my in-laws, my children, these have been a huge, huge, huge influence on me, and always positive. I mean, these are the people I would go to when faced with existential
Questions.
When the chips were really down. Who do you go to? It's your family that you go to. And also some friends. There were friends. I don't want to name them. Of course, there have been friends. But most of all, it's been family. And I would like to acknowledge them. As far as the inner space is concerned, to me, that is the source of everything that we do in our professional and in our personal lives. I have never really had different standards for professional life and personal life. I haven't used different yardsticks and different values and different principles. No. I have no shame or no embarrassment in saying whatever I thought was important and what I would like to follow in my personal life is exactly what I followed in my corporate life. The context was different. There could have been degrees of difference, that good old spectrum.
Yeah.
where
It's
I
like
would be.
different playgrounds, but I will play my own same strokes.
Yes. Yes. I will play my same strokes, but I'll play different strokes at different points in time in
with different
contexts.
magnitude. Yeah.
Now, whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, I mean, I don't think I've had a particularly successful corporate career. I don't think so. I definitely don't think so. On my personal side, as a human being, I have been blessed with, I couldn't ever have asked for more.
You spoke about, when we started this conversation, you spoke about Satya,
Prem and
Prem
Seva.
or Seva.
Yeah, Satya, Prem and Seva.
Yeah. And I've heard you talking about these 3 words very often.
Yes.
Tell me, where did you pick up these 3 words and what's the significance of these 3 words today when you look at life?
Yeah. Where did I pick it up? From my life experience. Did I hear, I'm not sure whether these words were used by Gandhi, but certainly in different, whether they were used by him together. I can't remember, but mostly a lot of these thoughts have crystallized during the Rise movement. A lot of my thoughts, for me, Mahindra Rise, while certainly was a corporate movement, it was also a huge reflection of my own inner space. And therefore, I was living out who I was, and it happened to coincide with what I thought was the essence of Mahindra Rise. And for that, I owe an eternal debt of gratitude to Anand Mahindra.
And what do you think is the significance of these three words when they
words.
come together?
Satya, Prem and Seva. Satya is to speak the truth, my truth. But do it in a manner that is respectful. But have the courage to speak the truth, even if it is not very convenient in the short term. It can go against you. So, almost, I mean, it's not a nice way to articulate to say regardless of the consequences, because you should try to speak the truth in a context and in a manner that has a positive outcome. But to speak the truth and never to speak a lie. And that has been ingrained in me from childhood.
That you have to speak
and
your
I
truth.
saw that it was so important to be able to create trust. And trust is the bedrock of business. You cannot have a business that will sustain and grow unless it is based on trust as far as all stakeholders are concerned. And trust is based on speaking the truth, ultimately. It is based on authenticity, but authenticity is ultimately about the truth. I will say what I think and I will do what I say. Prem is compassion, the ability to put myself into the shoes of the other person. When you need to have a deep understanding of stakeholder needs, now I'm using corporate speak. How do you get deep understanding of stakeholder needs, both expressed and unexpressed, whether it be employees, it be customers, it be your members of the supply chain, communities, shareholders. So unless you're able to put yourself into the shoes of that other person, which is my definition of compassion, how will you understand what their needs are?
So it has an element of empathy as well.
Yeah, empathy, of course. It has an element of empathy. Compassion and empathy, to my mind,
hand
are
in
very
hand.
closely related, if not identical almost. And I don't want to get into
Yeah,
a
yeah,
semantic
absolutely.
argument here, but that's the general meaning. And especially in the context of the new normal, which is VUCA or BANI, and where there is a pushback by stakeholders because they have information and the power to do that, and there is huge interconnectedness. Compassion, which means to put myself into the shoes of the other person and to get a good understanding of the needs of that stakeholder becomes a crucial point for doing good business.
Yeah.
And finally, Seva. Seva is sense of service. What is business? It is solving problems of people. And if you go in with the Bhavna that I'm here to solve somebody's problems, that is Seva Bhavna. It also brings in the ability to connect with people, and we can go into all that. But Seva is something that is so crucial to be able to solve problems, which is what business is all about. It is so crucial in life. Am I doing something for the other person? Because at a personal level, it is the source of the greatest joy to be able to do something that is making a positive difference in the life of somebody else, especially if that person is not as fortunate as I am or who's in a bad shape.
So true.
Yeah. And not only is it a source of joy, it is a source of great power and energy. And that energy you can pour into your action, into your karma.
Yeah.
So I find a total congruence between Satya, Prem and Seva as the three pillars for guiding personal life as well as corporate life.
I can actually experience so much of joy that you have talking about that. So thank you so much, Rajeev sir. Such a pleasure having you here. Always a delight. Always a delight. Just to listen to you. I can listen to you for hours and hours together.
Okay, let me say that it's been a wonderful conversation. I have loved your questions. Formulating the right question is an absolutely necessary thing for any good outcome to come.
Yeah.
It's not sufficient because then answers come in. But if you give brilliant answers to wrong questions, it's not going to lead you anywhere. So I thank you so much for asking questions that really made me think. And I don't know how the time has passed. But thank you. It's been wonderful talking to you. God bless you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. It was wonderful having you while I was enjoying my conversation with Mr. Rajeev Dubey. He's somebody that I've always looked up to. I remember there were times when I would read his articles in the newspapers. There were times when I would read his articles in the magazines, and there came an opportunity to interact with him. At times, break the bread with him. I personally had huge learning from this conversation, starting from that irrespective of where you are in your life, doesn't really matter how accomplished you are, you have your own moments of vulnerability. You would have your own assumptions that I'm inadequate, I'm not good enough. And yet the question is, with that, do you slow down or do you pick up those pieces and continue to walk? Take one step forward. I loved his stories and his experiences and his ability to express his gratitude and shukrana to his mentors. How many times do we take a pause and look at those people who have contributed, who have crafted our pathways in our lives, be it in your professional circle or be it your family members? And the third thing that I'm never going to forget, that's truth, compassion and service. The question is, am I willing to live my life from my Satya? Am I willing to live from my Prem Bhav? Am I willing to live my life from a space of Seva? So thank you so much. I'm sure you would have enjoyed this conversation. Do share this conversation with your friends, with your family members who you believe would get benefited. Do take some time to rate and review this conversation on your favorite platform, be it Apple Podcast or Spotify, and do take some time to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I promise you, next week I'll bring to you another fascinating, interesting conversation with yet another thoughtful leader. Take care, stay blessed, stay tuned.